What is up, guys? Welcome back to my channel. Today, we're going to be getting into my week 5. Now, yeah, it is week 5 NFL Power Rankings. It is crazy how fast this month went by, but we are already on week 5 of the NFL season. So, let's get into these Power Rankings, starting out with the bad tier at number 32. Two more teams join this tier, but let's start out with the worst team, the Houston Texans, staying at the same spot from last week. The Houston Texans, 0-3-1. Davis Mills has not looked great to start out the year. We're trying to compete against the Chargers near the end of that football game. Just couldn't quite get the job done. Yeah, Houston's the same thing, though. They're a scrappy football team. Same as last week, what I said about this team. So, nothing really to be, I feel like they're going to get a win soon, the way they've been playing, but I don't know. Houston's still the worst team in football. So that's where I am at Houston, the last team to not get a win yet, right there at 32. Moving on to number 31, we're going to have the Chicago Bears at 2-2. Chicago lost the game against the Giants. The easier part of their schedule is out of the way. But yeah, I mean, yeah, they've gotten 2 wins out of this easy part of their schedule. Now we're going to start to see a lot more losses, I think, come their way as the season goes on. So I'm not expecting much out of Chicago. Both those teams are staying at the bottom 2 spots from last week. Moving on to number 30, the Washington Commanders going to be dropping down a spot. Disappointed in Washington in this game. I know they matched up horribly with the Dallas Cowboys in that game, but this defense, I was expecting, Ron Rivera to do something with this unit this year. It has not looked good. It's definitely not looked like the 2020 unit we saw a few years ago. It's just not a very good team here. Carson Wentz just did not play good at all. That O-line isn't good, and they're not really able to utilize these weapons that get really a run game going. So they very much matched up poorly against the Cowboys in that game. Don't get me wrong, but yeah, I'm not confident in the Washington Commanders right now. So they're going to be sitting at 30, at 1-3. Drop down a spot. Moving on to number 29, dropping down 3 spots from last week. And into this bad tier, we have the Carolina Panthers. Disappointed in Carolina, man. How much more do we have to see from Matt Rule for him to not be fired? I think he should be fired at this point. I know it's very early on in the year, but what does he bring to the table that's good for this team that we've seen? Literally nothing. Carolina, it's time to move on for Matt Rule. Baker Mayfield's looked atrocious to start out the year. And this young defense, I had much more confidence in entering into the season than what they are. It's not what the defense I thought it was. They're not bad, but they're not really good either. They started out that game against the Cardinals good, but yeah, Carolina, another very disappointing loss. Drop it down 3 spots. This team is just not looking good at all this season. So Carolina 1-3. We're going to see what happens there. Matt Rule, I think, should be fired at this point. Looks like he's going to have another week to survive, but it ain't looking good for him and the Panthers. All right, so that's the bad tier. Let's move on to the decent tier. A team jumping up from the bad tier into this decent tier. We're going to have the Atlanta Falcons at number 28, jumping up 2 spots. A very impressive win against a good Cleveland Browns team, getting the job done. Was able to outwit that defense. This play calling by Smith, he is really incorporating some good things into this unit, and I like what they're doing here in Atlanta. It's been impressive. I was really down on Atlanta to start out the year. I had this team as my worst team in the league. Sorry, but they really have proved me wrong this season. Winning 2 games against 2 teams on their level at this point. So congratulations to the Falcons there. Jumping out of that bad tier into the decent tier, earning my respect a bit, and jumping up 2 spots. Moving on to number 27, we're going to have the New York Giants. 3-1, they're going to be staying at the same spot. Just handle their business against the Bears in that previous game. But still Daniel Jones really isn't it, I think, for this Giants team. Brian Dable's done a very solid job, though, to start up this season. But then again, this Giants' easy part of their schedule is done. Not really hard foes. They have a much tougher schedule coming up for this team. So I think we're going to start seeing some losses here for New York in the future. But we're going to see what happens with the Giants right now. Still staying at 27. Just handle their business against the worst football team in Chicago. Moving on to number 26, we have the Pittsburgh Steelers going to be dropping down 3 spots. The Steelers are at 1-3 right now. And man, was able to make that change to Kenny Pickett, but man, the Pittsburgh Steelers, I had them a little bit too high, I think. This team is just not looking good, with Watt out. They need him back. This defense isn't taking the step. If you can't even beat the Jets offense, I don't know what's going to happen for the Steelers, because I have faith in that Jets team, but, the Steelers, Mike Tomlin, I was expecting more out of him to start out the year, but a 1-3 start is very disappointing, and to lose at home to the Jets, that's even more disappointing for this team. So they're going to be dropping down 3 spots. Just a very disappointing start to this year for Pittsburgh. And then number 25, we have the New York Jets, the team that beat the Steelers this week. You love to see it if you're a Jets fan. Zach Wilson coming back. He had a solid game. He threw 2 picks, but he played good. He played good for the New York Jets, and this team was able to lead. Zach Wilson was able to lead his team to a victory. And also, the defense for Robert Saleh and this unit's gotten better. That's a big point, too. They haven't looked great at all to start out the year, but they played decent against the Steelers in that game. So, things are looking a little bit more up for the Jets. Zach Wilson's back. You can start to get this offense rolling with him in, and that defense is looking better, maybe building off of having Wilson back. So I believe in Zach Wilson. I think he's going to be good for them. And that's where I have the Jets right there at 25. Let's move on to number 24. We're going to have the Detroit Lions. Going to be staying at the same spot. Detroit at 1-3. Yeah. I mean, I saw the stat a few days ago, and it blew my mind. This team has scored 144 points this season. That's the most. 140 points this season. That's the most in the NFL, but they still have a -1 differential because their defense has allowed 141 points. This defense is horrible for Detroit. Really just couldn't stop Geno Smith and the Seahawks at all in that game. Jared Goff and this offense was trying to keep it up. But my oh my, that offense, that's impressive for them, though. Without Amon-Ra St. Brown and DeAndre Swift, they were able to put up 45 points in that previous game. That is pretty darn impressive. TJ Hawkinson had a career game for the Lions. So you love to see that for Detroit. Goff did what he needed to do in that game. So I really do like Campbell and this play calling, but that defense, man, they are holding them back. If they had a solid defense, this team could be very good. And probably, honestly, could be up in the contender tier because the way they're scoring on the offensive side of the ball is pretty impressive. So that is the Lions right there at 1-3. Hopefully they can get that defensive situation under control. But yeah, Detroit still needs to figure that out. Moving on to number 23, we're going to have the Cleveland Browns dropping down 4 spots. Very disappointing loss to the New York Jets. They lost to them a few weeks ago. The Atlanta Falcons. In my opinion, the Browns are the better football team than Atlanta. Jacoby Brissett did not look good in that game. They got to come away with the win there. But, yeah, Cleveland, you got to be better than this, though. I don't know. Myles Garrett was out. Obviously, that's a big concern for them. I just think I might have been a little bit too high in Cleveland to start out the year. Maybe that's why this team is dropping down 4 spots, but you got to win the Falcons. You're a better team than the Falcons. That was a disappointing loss for me for Cleveland. So I know they were on the road, but Jacoby Brissett did not look good in that game at all. So that is Cleveland. Hopefully they can get back on track this next week. And then number 22, we're going to have the Seattle Seahawks getting a big win over Detroit this week, jumping up 3 spots. Geno Smith has looked like a very solid quarterback to start up this season. It's been impressive. It's been impressive for the Seahawks, and this offense is actually really good down there in Seattle. This play calling's been good. You know, they're getting DK Metcalf on these routes. They got some solid tight ends in there. Tyler Lockett's obviously been good. This O-line has actually been more impressive than a lot of people thought coming into the year. So it's just the defense, very similar to the Lions, that's holding this team back. I really do think that Jamal Adams' injury is big because this run defense sucks. And I think Jamal Adams being in there could have helped this run defense quite a bit. But, yeah, the Seahawks defense, I think, is, we've seen this before. This team has very bad defenses to start out the year and has turned things around later on. I think this team could do that again this season, but they got to get some things figured out on that side of the ball. But right now, Seattle, big win, celebration down there in the Seattle territory with the Mariners making the playoffs as well. I know that's another sport, but, us Seattle sport fans are happy. So there is Seattle. Let's move on to number 20. We're going to have the Dallas Cowboys jumping up a spot. Dallas, Cooper Rush is the first quarter. I just saw this. I'm not sure if this is right, but first quarterback in NFL history first quarterback in Cowboys history to go 4-0 in their first 4 games as a Cowboy. So that's impressive for Cooper Rush. Quarterback controversy may appear in Dallas, but yeah, they just handled their business against the Commanders. It's really this defense. What a unit the Cowboys defense has. Their pass rush just got after Carson Wentz in that game. This team, it's just, I got to give my hats off to Mike McCarthy. He has really done a much better job than I thought when Dak got injured to rally around this team and get them to 3-1. So very impressive for Dallas. They're close to that in the hunt tier. We're going to see if they could jump up to it. So jumping up a spot from last week, and that is the decent tier right there. Let's move on to the in the hunt tier. Starting at the number 20 team, we're going to have the New Orleans Saints dropping down 3 spots at 1-3. The Saints, they didn't play bad with Andy Dalton in that game. Another one of those quarterback controversies. I could see Andy Dalton taking over Jameis Winston's job. But yeah, it took me a while to drop down the Saints when they needed to be dropped. They needed to be dropped here. This offense without Kamara, I think this team wins. They nearly won the game. That was close, but just couldn't quite get it done. But yeah, like I said, I needed to drop down this team. 1-3 start. It's just been a disappointing start down there in New Orleans. So that's where I'm at with the Saints right now at number 20. And then let's move on to the number 19 team. We have the Jacksonville Jaguars jumping up a spot and jumping up into this in the hunt tier, mainly because of the AFC South battle right now. With that division looks wide open right now, and the Jags are currently on top. I'm not entirely sure that they're going to get on top of it, but yeah, I do believe in the Jaguars right now to be in that contest to finish off the year. I don't think they'll make the playoffs as a wild card in that tough AFC, but we'll see. Jacksonville, though, it's been a very solid start for Trevor Lawrence. He had a lot of turnovers in that game, though, but they were able to hang around against the undefeated Eagles. Excuse me. But yeah, I'm not worried about the Jaguars on that loss. They're jumping up a spot for a reason, mainly because of the Saints. So I'm not worried about the Jaguars' loss there at all. They're going to be sitting at 19. Let's move on to number 18. We're going to have the Tennessee Titans jumping up 3 spots here, beating the Colts in that game. Big win for Tennessee. And now this is the Tennessee Titans team that we all know and love. Very well coached team. They came in with a very solid game plan against the Colts. Were able to really play good against that Colts offense in that game and ran the football very solid and just got the job done to get their second win of the year and are starting to pick up some momentum now. So that is Tennessee. Also another team jumping up in the hunt here. I do think the Colts are still the best team in the AFC South, but it's getting tight right now. Colts have been a very disappointing start besides that Chiefs win. So we're going to see what happens there. But Tennessee, impressive win for them. They're going to keep jumping up if they keep doing this. So good win for Tennessee. Let's move on to number 17. We're going to have the Minnesota Vikings jumping up a spot and jumping up into this playoff tier after they beat the Saints. Minnesota, they didn't look too good in this game against the Saints. I was expecting more out of this offense. And this defense still is concerning. I don't really like this defense unit here in Minnesota. But they were able to handle their business against the Saints. Greg Joseph just made a ton of field goals in that game. They just kept kicking it up. You got to give credit, though, to that Saints defense. So they played well in that game. But, yeah, the Vikings, Kirk Cousins is just going to keep being a solid quarterback for this team. And I do think this team in this weak NFC conference can make the playoffs when it's all said and done. So that's my stance on the Vikings right now. Let's move on to number 16. We're going to have the Indianapolis Colts drop it down 3 spots at 1-2-1. Disappointing loss to the Tennessee Titans, but as against your division rival, this offense is starting to get some things going, though, these past couple weeks. I've been expecting some more out of this defense, though. They just got ran all over on by the Titans in that previous game. So you don't like to see that if you're a Colts fan, but I'm not worried about Indy. I think that they're going to be I am worried. Let me just say that. I am worried, but I still believe in the Colts. I think that they can turn things around right now and be a solid football team. So that's my stance on Indy right now. Let's move on to number 15. We have the New England Patriots. Also going to be jumping up a spot at 1-3. Good win for New England. Good loss for New England. With their backup quarterback, Bailey Zapp was able to be a good game manager in that game. Oh, wait, this team is, by the way, in the hunt. My bad. But yeah, Bailey Zapp was able to be a game manager. Bill Belichick kept that team in that game against a good Green Bay Packers defense. You like to see it. If you're the Patriots, they just ran the football a ton. And that was the game plan that game. They played good defense, but it just wasn't enough to beat a solid Packers team. It was a disappointing loss for New England, but it just shows how good of a coach Bill Belichick is, and I think he's going to keep this team in a lot of games this season. So that's my stance on the Patriots. Let's move on to number 14. We're going to have the Arizona Cardinals sitting at 2-2, jumping up a spot. Also in this playoff tier. The Cardinals have been, just got the job done against a very bad Panthers team. I still have concerns about the coaching. Kyler Murray's really just carrying this offense right now. And he could really, I feel like Kyler Murray could be such a better player if the coaching was better here in Arizona. But it is what it is. Whatever. Cliff Kingsbury's the coach. No need to worry about it. At 2-2, they're still a playoff team in my eyes. Just this defense isn't good. We're gonna have to see what keeps happening with the Cardinals. If they keep getting better, if they keep getting worse, I guess we're gonna have to see. But that's my stance on Arizona right now. At 14, jumping up a spot. Let's move on to number 13. Miami Dolphins. Now, I don't want to dive into the Tua situation. It's unfortunate what happened to him. Just the medical staff's got to be better. They got to recognize when it's a concussion. But, not diving into that. Tua's going to at least be out for this week. We know that. They're going to be dropping down 3 spots mainly because Tua is out. I'm not discrediting that loss. That was I'm not making this seem like that was because of the loss, because that's a good Bengals team. I just think with Teddy Bridgewater at quarterback, you're going to have some limitations rather than having Tua in. So it's going to be tough for the Dolphins, but I do think that Teddy Bridgewater is a very good backup, maybe even a starter for some teams in the league. And I think he's going to be able to do solid with the weapons that they have here and be good enough. I'm not sure when Tua's going to return. It doesn't look good. I don't know. I just hope he's going to be okay. So right now, that's just why the Dolphins are dropping down and dropping out of the playoff tiers, just because of Tua getting injured. So that's Miami right there. Let's move on to number 12. We're going to have the Las Vegas Raiders. Jumping up 2 spots, getting a big win over the Denver Broncos this week at 1-3. Good win for the Raiders. First win of the year. You were able to get that in the win column. It doesn't get easier, though. You got the Chiefs this next week, but this offense was finally able to get some things going against a solid Denver defense. The Devontae Adams had a big game. The Raiders pass rush got there. Their pass rush got to Russ in this game. And a lot of the things that were missing from the Raiders this season that we thought was going to be good started to get better. Derek Carr had a good game, and the Raiders were able to handle their business at home against Denver. So, good win for the Las Vegas Raiders, sitting at number 12. Let's move on to number 11, the Los Angeles Chargers, jumping up a spot, mainly just because of the Dolphins dropping down here at 2-2. You love to see it if you're a Chargers fan. Justin Herbert getting the win. Texans, though, it's just against the Texans, so don't get too excited if you're the Chargers. But, this team handled their business. We're going to have to see what they look like with Slater and a Slater and Bosa-less team against an actual solid football team. Not sure who they play this next week. Let's just check real quick. They play the Browns, so we're going to see how they look against the Browns. The Chargers got the job done this previous week, so you like to see that. But sitting at 2-2, solid job from Los Angeles. Let's move on to number 10. We have the Baltimore Ravens just blowing it again. They are also jumping up a spot, though. It wasn't a bad loss or anything. It was against a good Bills team, but Lamar Jackson has looked insane to start out the year. You can't even say how better Lamar Jackson's looked. He has looked very good, and this team is building off of him. The run game has started to get going for this team. The receivers are pretty solid. They just got to get – this defense has got to get some things under control. They can't blow games like this. They played a pretty good first half until this against a good Josh Allen Bills team. But, the Ravens, I'm not worried about them, though, at all. That's a good team that you lost to. So, right now the Ravens are going to sit at number 10. So, those are my playoff teams. Let's move on to the contenders. Starting out with the number 9 team, we have the Los Angeles Rams dropping down 3 spots. Very disappointing loss this week to the San Francisco 49ers. We finally saw that this we've seen it again against the Bills. This O-line sucks. They finally play a good pass rush in the league here in San Francisco, one of the best. That San Francisco defense just ate against the Rams. And Matthew Stafford just couldn't run for his life right now. So that is definitely a concern on this Rams team. But if they can play some better teams and in some less pass rush teams in the playoffs, I can see a way where they're going to win the Super Bowl this year. So that's why I still have the benefit of the doubt of keeping them into this tier. But the defense isn't looking good to start out the year. Honestly, it hasn't been looking too good. It was a rough week for the Rams on Monday night. The Niners usually have the Rams number, so that's a big reason why too. But tough loss for the Rams. Number 8, we're going to have the San Francisco 49ers jumping up a spot. Good win for San Fran this week. Coming off a very tough game against the Broncos. Their offense wasn't able to get anything going, but that offense started to get some things going, and this defense looks really good for the San Francisco 49ers. the defense that I was anticipating the past 2 weeks that they've shown. So you love to see that if you're the Niners, but obviously the Niners got to get the there's still some concerns there with Jimmy G, but yeah, Niners going to be jumping up a spot. Big win over the Rams this week. Let's move on to number 7, the Philadelphia Eagles, the last undefeated team remaining. Going to be jumping up a spot. Big win against Jacksonville this week. You got the job done against the Jaguars in that rainy weather game. This defense has looked really good. This offense has explosive weapons. The Eagles, man, they're looking like a very good football team, and they're going to continue to rise if they keep looking like this. Very solid first 4 weeks for the Eagles. Well, really good. The last undefeated team remaining. So hats off to the Eagles beating a not a bad Jaguars team down there. Moving on to number 6, the Cincinnati Bengals got a big win over the Dolphins. I know Tua went out mid-game, but yeah, the Bengals were able to get the job done. This offense has finally looked good against a pretty solid Miami Dolphins defense in that game. And obviously the defense has been, subpar to start out the year for the Bengals. But yeah, I'm still concerned about some Zach Taylor stuff. He's not the greatest coach of all time. He's made some mistakes, so I'm still concerned about some stuff there, but good win for Cincinnati, and they're going to sit at number 6. Let's move on to number 5. We have the Green Bay Packers staying at the same spot. We're able to sneak out a win over the New England Patriots this week at home at 3-1. You love to see it if you're Green Bay, but yeah, I'm disappointed in the Packers, though. This defense, it could be so much better, but their defensive coordinator, I think, has held them back. This team could have been so much better. You gotta get that run defense going there. So I think that Green Bay's got to get some things going on that defense. And Aaron Rodgers did not look good in that first half for the Green Bay Packers. But all that being said, they were able to get the win. And good teams find ways to win. So hats off to the Green Bay Packers getting the job done there. And they're going to be staying at number 5. Let's move on to number 4. The Tampa Bay Buccaneers. The only reason they're not dropping down below the Packers here is because they were out with a lot of their receivers. It was just a manslaughter by the Chiefs in that game, and I very much discredited, the Chiefs in that game. I very much counted them out, I'll admit. And I was too high in this Bucs defense. The Bucs defense still I do believe in, but they really did not play good at all against the Chiefs offense in that game. And Tom Brady didn't do enough. Mike Evans, very good game for Mike, but yeah, this team just wasn't able to get the job done against it looked like just clearly a better football team in Kansas City. So you don't like to see that if you're the Bucs, but yeah, Tom Brady I still think is going to be able to lead this team to some wins, and I think this team will be just fine. Moving on to number 3, we're going to have the Denver Broncos here. A lot of people probably going to be confused why the Broncos are so high, and the Broncos, I really have faith in. Russell Wilson, I really have faith in Russ, and he finally started to get some things going. I think it was the team around him that just did not have a good week. That O-line looked very bad for the Broncos. The defense just did not play good, really, against the Chiefs. But I just think that was one week thing, and I'm going to keep having faith in the Broncos. I know this coaching's still a little bit weird, but I have faith in Russell Wilson and what he's going to do. I know he's getting some hate right now. I know the Broncos are getting some hate. I'm not a Broncos fan either way. I just have faith in Russ and what he's going to bring to the team, and I think that they're going to be able to turn this rough stretch around. I do believe that. At number 3, I do still think, with the Buccaneers having a bad week, Packers are not getting the job done. I still think that this Broncos team has no right to really drop here. So, yeah, I'm going to keep them at number 3. Let's move on to number 2. We're going to have the Kansas City Chiefs jumping up 2 spots here. At 3-1, Chiefs, and just going to throw up the number 1 team because these 2 teams are neck and neck right now. The Chiefs just had an excellent week this week. Just Patrick Mahomes looked crazy. He was able to dominate the Buccaneers defense. Very good win. And then the Bills, obviously, getting the job done against the Baltimore Ravens. You love to see that. These two teams are clearly the two best teams in the NFL. Chiefs jumping